Chapter 15. What? Dawn whispered, eyeing the older kid's baseball bat. Zach hurried over, casting an anxious look over his shoulder at the older kids. We told them about the TP plan, and they said that's kid stuff, he whispered. They think we should really teach Z-Corp a lesson. Dawn froze. Now what? That was her mom's workplace. And worse, if the older kids actually got inside, it wouldn't take them long to figure out it wasn't an ordinary lab. Her mind flashed to the zombie statue in the lobby, and the zombie charts on all the walls. We can't let them do it, she hissed. They'll, get us all in big trouble if we get caught. We know. Xander looked miserable. But trust me, they're not going to listen to us. Before Dawn could respond, one of the older boys strode toward her. This one had dark hair and a can of spray paint in his hand. Yasmin says you know your way around up here, he said with a smirk. So let's get moving and have some fun. Dawn smiled weakly, but her mind was racing. She couldn't let this happen. The world couldn't discover Vespertine's secrets. Not when Dawn was about to go zombie herself in a little over 20-4 hours. But that wasn't the only reason she wanted to stop this, she realized. Even if a miracle happened, and she didn't change, she still wouldn't want the zombie's secret to get out. She got about Luna with her cheerful smile and her love of horses, and about Uncle Charlie, Aunt Kim and Graham. They were her family, and she didn't want a bunch of nosy outsiders up here harassing them. Or Jake and Jane, either, who were still struggling with their new change. Or Dr. Nancy, and the others at the lab. Or any of the other zombies in town, yes, even that obnoxious Johnny O'Malley from the diner. If the world found out the truth about Vespertine, the peaceful little town would never be the same. And it would be all Dawn's fault. She had to fix this herself. Listen, she spoke up, glancing from the boy with the spray paint to the others. I'm not sure this is a good idea. There might be security at the lab, and minus. No way, the guy with the baseball bat said. You're not backing out on us now. Yeah. Yasmin's sister raised a fist. We can't let that evil corporation poison the wilderness. Dawn gulped. Okay, so the older kids weren't going to listen to reason, especially from some 12-year-old they just met. There had to be another way. Okay, that's fine, she blurted out as a new plan popped into her head. But listen, I just realized I dropped my flashlight. Come to think of it, one think I heard it fall right before I got here. I'll be right back. Wait. The kid with the spray paint stepped forward. His eyes glinted with suspicion in the moonlight as he grabbed the handlebars of Dawn's bike. If it's that close, you can walk back and get it. Yeah. The baseball bat guy snorted with laughter. Don't want you taking off on us now. Dawn took a deep breath. Fine, she said. I'll be right back. She hurried off before anyone else could protest. Her legs were shaking so hard, she could barely walk. But she broke into a jog as soon as she rounded the curve. Guys, she hissed, peering into the darkness along the road. Are you still here? For a second, she was afraid it was too late, that Jake and Jane had already left to meet her in the woods near the lab. Then the leaves rustled, and Jake stepped into view. Jane was right behind him. Dawn. Jake whispered. What's going on? Didn't they show up? Oh, they showed up all right. Dawn quickly told the twins what was happening. We've got to do something. She finished. Can you guys run back and tell Mrs. Tompkins to call the police? Jane looked worried. Won't that get Yas and the others in big trouble? Probably. Dawn bit her lip. But we can't help that. If those high school kids see anything they shouldn't. You're right. Jake nodded. We've got to stop them, no matter what. It might take a while for the police to get here though, and the lab isn't that far away from us. I'll try to stall them, Dawn promised. She glanced over her shoulder. Was that the sound of someone coming after her? I've got to go, she hissed. Grabbing her flashlight out of her pocket, she hurried back toward the sign. Isn't that the place up ahead? One of the older kids called out from somewhere behind Dawn on the narrow trail. How come you want us to go off to the left? Dawn glanced forward. The moon was out again, and the Z-Corp building was visible rising over the trees, its glass front gleaming in the soft, cool light. Yeah, that's it. Dawn figured there wasn't much point in lying about that part. But see, there's this big, really steep ditch between here and there. We have to go around it. The older kid shrugged, seeming to buy it. This way, guys. He called softly to the rest of the group straggling along behind them. Dawn sneaked a peek at her watch. It had been almost half an hour since they'd started out. She'd led the way as slowly as possible, taking detours she didn't know if she could find the way back from. But now they'd ended up pretty close to the lab. When were the police going to show up? The group crept down the path to the left. After a few minutes, it dead-ended in a thicket of prickly vines. Oops, Dawn said. This is bogus, one of the teen boys said, his voice echoing loudly in the dark forest. We can see the stupid building. Let's just trailblaze our way right to it. Yeah. One of the other boys agreed. Here, I'll clear the path. He started swinging his baseball bat, knocking aside underbrush and small saplings as he charged into the woods. Wait, Dawn called. Let's just go back to the main trail. We might be able to get through the ditch after all. Several of the boys looked suspicious, but Yasmin's sister shrugged. I don't want to fight my way through the woods, she said, smoothing down her long skirt. Let's try it her way. Fine. Baseball bat guy slung his arm around the older girl's shoulders and shot Dawn a wary look. We'll try it her way. One more time. But we'd better be at that building in 10 minutes, or... He didn't have to say anything more. Dawn gulped, realizing she couldn't stall them much longer. She kept moving, walking as slowly as she could without raising more suspicion. They would reach the lab in about 5 minutes. Then what? Suddenly, something leapt out of the woods right in front of her. Goward. It gurgled. It was the scary zombie woman. Dawn had almost forgotten about her in all the excitement. The woman's eyes bulged out of her green mottled face, and spittle flew in every direction. Dawn screamed at the top of her lungs. She wasn't the only one. The other kids had seen the zombie too. With shouts of surprise and terror, they all turned and ran. Dawn did the same. The zombie's woman's extra strong scent made her gasp for breath as she ran. How close was the zombie? Dawn risked a glance back to see. At that moment her foot hit a root on the trail. Dawn went flying, landing flat on her face.